Did you know before George Lucas sold the rights to Star Wars to Disney, he had already planned out his vision for episodes 7, 8 and 9? In a conversation with film historian Paul Duncan for the Star Wars Archives, episodes 1 to 3, George revealed, "I had planned the first trilogy to be about the father, the second trilogy to be about the son, and the third trilogy to be about the daughter and the grandchildren. Episodes 7, 8 and 9 would take ideas from what happened after the Iraq War. Okay, you fought the war, you killed everybody. Now what are you going to do? Rebuilding afterwards is harder than starting a rebellion or fighting the war. When you win the war and you disband the opposing army, what do? The stormtroopers would be like Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist fighters that joined ISIS and kept on fighting. The stormtroopers refuse to give up when the Republic win. They want to be stormtroopers forever, so they go out to a far corner of the galaxy, start their own country and their own rebellion. There's a power vacuum, so gangsters like the Hutts are taking advantage of the situation, and there is chaos. The key person is Darth Maul, who had been resurrected in the Clone Wars cartoons. He brings all the gangs together." Paul Duncan asks, "Was Darth Maul the main villain?" George replies, "Yeah, but he's very old, and we have two cybernetic versions of him. One is with a set of cybernetic legs like a spider, and then later on he has metal legs. And he was a bit bigger, more of a superhero. We did all this in the animated series, he was in a bunch of episodes. Darth Maul trained a girl, Darth Talon, who was in the comic books, as his apprentice. She was the new Darth Vader and most of the action was with her. So these were the two main villains of the trilogy. Maul eventually became the godfather of crime in the universe, because as the Empire falls, he takes over. The movies are about how Leia, who else is going to be the leader, is trying to build the Republic. They still have the apparatus of the Republic, but they still have to get it under control from the gangsters. That was the main story. It starts out a few years after Return of the Jedi, and we establish pretty quickly that there is this underworld. There are these offshoot stormtroopers who started their own planets, and that Luke is trying to restart the Jedi. He puts the word out, so out of 100,000 Jedi, maybe 50 or 100 are left. The Jedi have to grow again from scratch, so Luke has to find 2 and 3-year-olds and train them. It'll be 20 years before you have a new generation of Jedi. By the end of the trilogy, Luke would have rebuilt much of the Jedi, and we would have the renewal of the New Republic, with Leia, Senator Organa, becoming the Supreme Chancellor in charge of everything. So she ended up being the chosen one. In an interview with James Cameron's book, The Story of Science Fiction, George, talking about his sequel trilogy, said his films were going to get into a microbiotic world. There's this world of creatures that operate differently than we do. I call them the Wills. And the Wills are the ones who actually control the universe. They feed off the Force. Lucas considered living things as vehicles for the Wills to travel around in, and the conduit is the midichlorians. The midichlorians are the ones that communicate with the Wills. The Wills, in a general sense, they are the Force. A lot of the fans would have hated it, just like they did Phantom Menace and everything, but at least the whole story from beginning to end would be told. Oscar-winning screenwriter Michael Arndt, known for Little Miss Sunshine and Toy Story 3, was hired by George Lucas to write a sequel and help shape the overall structure of a new Star Wars trilogy, based on story treatments provided by Lucas himself. When George sold Lucasfilm to Disney, the sale also marked the transition of leadership to Kathleen Kennedy, who became president of Lucasfilm as Lucas stepped back from active involvement in filmmaking, but stayed on as a creative consultant, handing over his sequel trilogy treatments to Disney.
I wanted to get into sort of another stage of life where I'm not in the film business anymore, and I don't have to run a corporation. And it occurred to me one day that the perfect person to take over the company was Kathy. It's just such a perfect fit. I have story treatments of 7, 8, and 9 and a bunch of other movies, and obviously we have hundreds of books and comics and everything you could possibly imagine. So, I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies.
Michael Arndt began working with a team of concept artists to begin to visualize the story, and at this time they were still working with George's treatments. Most of what we know about this comes from the Art of the Force Awakens book. The main characters were called Kira and Sam, who would later become Rey and Finn. Both characters were in their 20s. Kira was a scavenger described by Michael Arndt as being a loner, hothead, gearhead badass, and Sam was the son of Han and Leia, and is described as being pure charisma. And it's possible that Kira was his sister, as they look very alike, and George has talked about Darth Vader's grandchildren in interviews.
JJ, what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren?
Oh, George. This is great. You tell me, man. You made all this shit up.
According to production designer Rick Carter, in the beginning, Michael Arndt would have ideas about types of planets and environments that he was looking to explore, such as a planet that had all the wreckage from the previous Star Wars movies. This would become Jakku, the home of Kira, but what's interesting is that in concept art, Jakku had water, more greenery, and also had more Imperial wreckage. At one point, Kira and Sam would have travelled to the planet Felucia on the Falcon, where they are attacked by space pirates. It is unknown the reason they go to this planet. Kira would find the map to the Jedi and Luke Skywalker underwater in the Emperor's Tower in the wreckage of the second Death Star, going on to find Luke, who has been in exile for an unknown reason. Luke decides to train her and also trains Leia in the ways of the Force. Luke initially appeared midway through the film, but Michael Arndt said, "It just felt like every time Luke came in and entered the movie, he just took it over. Suddenly you didn't care about your main character anymore because, Luke Skywalker's here. I want to see what he's going to do." So the writers decided to use Luke as the film's MacGuffin, and as something that the protagonists needed to find, only appearing in person until the final scene. I found a lot of sources saying he survives the trilogy, while others say he dies. In a book written by creative executive Pablo Hidalgo called Fascinating Facts, he claims that Luke was still supposed to die in episode 8. Also in this book, he claims that Rey had many different names, including one called Winky, and that she was 14 years old, even though George has stated in interviews that his main characters would have been in their 20s.
And that the children were in their 20s and everything, so it wasn't Phantom Menace again.
Darth Talon would have had some pretty dark moments. We get a glimpse of this in concept art, where Talon is attacked in a bar and saved by a Jedi, who she seduces and then kills him. At some point in the story, Sam would have been turned to the dark side by Talon. There is also this piece of concept art of a mysterious figure named Uber, who was the master of Darth Talon. Uber was potentially a reveal for Darth Maul, or was an ancient dark side user. Uber would later evolve into Supreme Leader Snoke. I also think, and I'm speculating here, but Vader's castle was also meant to appear in some capacity, as it was brought up in meetings. Maybe it was an idea the concept artists had for the location of the map to Luke Skywalker, or maybe it was just a location that the villain resides at. J.J. Abrams was then announced as director, and this is where I believe the script Michael Arndt was working on based on George's treatments started to go in a different direction. As the script continued to evolve, the villain was changed to a mysterious Jedi killer that hunted down Luke's disciples, leading a daylight attack on an outpost on Jakku, first with a band of pirate mercenaries, then stormtroopers. This Jedi killer would consume energy from the sun at an Imperial base known then as Doomstar, which was still a super weapon inside of a planet, before being named Starkiller Base. The base was originally on Dantooine, as according to concept artist Ryan Church, the ruins we hear about on Dantooine in A New Hope had indeed been picked up and retrofitted by the Empire. Kira worked in a used spaceship lot of sorts, where she watches spaceships coming and going, daydreaming of leaving the planet. She also originally worked for an elderly father figure that was a former Republic pilot, and a mothballed Millennium Falcon was among the ships in the lot. Kira would fly an X-Wing in the final battle, using a lightsaber on a Star Destroyer. The character John Doe, who would become Poe Dameron, was originally designed as a Jedi. Then he was a bounty hunter with a Wookiee companion, before becoming a Republic military man with a droid companion carrying vital information. And for the character of Sam, it was decided that he'd be a former stormtrooper who witnesses the death of his friend and must team up with John Doe. Sam would have either seen a captured rebel crew killed by a firing squad or ejected into space, which would have then caused him to decide to escape with John Doe in a two-seater TIE fighter. The two heroes would crash into Jakku like in the film. John Doe abandons Sam at the crash site, but is soon saved by members of an indigenous alien tribe who take him back to their village. Sam would still carry his stormtrooper helmet that is marked with the blood-stained fingers of his dying friend. When he wakes up after being rescued by the alien tribe, one of the aliens is wearing it. The aliens would then perform a healing ritual, and Sam is reborn as a hero. The heroes would meet a down-and-out Han Solo on a planet with a crime city or exotic city, as well as a Yoda-like mentor figure at a saloon who would later go on to become Maz Kanata. After the heroes meet Han, they would have gone to Leia, who was at a base hidden in a cliff face, which then changed to a dense jungle base, to then her own castle. Michael Arndt also developed Leia being instrumental in rebuilding the Republic after the fall of the Empire, before being discredited when it is publicly revealed that her father was Darth Vader. At the end of Michael Arndt's story, Han would have lived as he thought that the story was about bringing Han and Leia back together. I had thought Han's story and Leia's story was just about them coming back together. At the end of the movie, they would have reconciled and gotten over their differences. And you would have said, okay, bad stuff happened, but at least they're back together again. JJ rightly asked, what is Han doing in this movie? If we're not going to have something important and irreversible happen to him, then he kind of feels like luggage. He feels like this great sexy piece of luggage you have in your movie, but he's not really evolving, he's not really pushing the story forward. For the opening, it originally started with an Imperial Star Destroyer being towed by frigates, before being released and falling into the surface of Jakku, and in concept art, James Cline designed a rebel frigate being pursued by a pirate ship that was designed to look like an Imperial Star Destroyer. According to concept artist Doug Chang, part of JJ's whole riff on this is that he wanted the opening of episode 7 to be very familiar to the point where it actually mimics the beginning of episode 7. The setup is that they were parallel, but then you would quickly realise that these are new ships and new villains. Another opening that was considered was Luke's severed hand clutching his father's lightsaber floating through space, where it would have landed on Jakku and picked up either by Maz, Rey, or it was rumoured that it was a villager that gave it to Lord Santeca. I also found this opening storyboard in the Art of the Force Awakens book, of a Star Destroyer being towed by two frigates. Skylar, a Wookiee, and an R2 unit load their ship with plunder onto what looks like Boba Fett's Slave One, causing the Slave One ship to be ripped away from it, taking the Wookiee with it. The R2 unit is trapped behind falling debris and can't make it in time to the escape pod, and the Star Destroyer crash lands onto the planet's surface, alerting a gang of salvage pirates. Thea then scales the Star Destroyer. What's interesting about the storyboard is that the names of the characters are Skylar and Thea, not Kira or Sam, which means, and I'm probably reaching here, that this storyboard is possibly from Lucas's script, or this was an idea JJ or Michael Arndt had early on and the names were just placeholders. Other things I found interesting from the Art of the Force Awakens was this concept art of a destroyed Jedi relic, with lightsaber scarring on the statue's face. According to Ryan Church, destroying Jedi relics was a theme that was with us early on. The Force Ghost of Anakin that transforms into Vader was meant to appear at some point, and Vader's mask was also a MacGuffin as well. Work continued on the script with very little progress. It is unclear exactly when, but George Lucas, who was a consultant for the movie, then stepped away due to Disney's decision to take the story in a different direction than his original outlines. George was disappointed and felt betrayed by Disney. Disney CEO Bob Iger explains in his memoir. George immediately got upset as they began to describe the plot, and it dawned on him that we weren't using one of the stories he submitted during the negotiations. George knew we weren't contractually bound to anything, but he thought our buying the story treatments was a tacit promise that we'd follow them, and he was disappointed that his story was being discarded. I'd been so careful since our first conversation not to mislead him in any way, and I didn't think I had now, but I could have handled it better. George felt betrayed, and while this whole process would never have been easy for him, we'd gotten off to an unnecessarily rocky start. Then Michael Arndt wanted another 18 months to work on the script, which was more time than Disney or Abrams could give him.
He usually needs about 2 to 3 years to immerse himself in something and then actually create a screenplay. And we hoped and thought that this would maybe be one of those that would go a little bit faster, but it didn't. So when we had to make the transition to Larry Kasdan and to J.J., it actually went pretty smoothly.
According to Kasdan, they were working with nothing. We didn't have anything. There were 1,000 people waiting for answers on things, and you couldn't tell them anything except, yeah, that guy's in it. That was about it. With very little time to deliver a script before the movie moved into production, J.J. and Kasdan decided to mirror A New Hope as a safe way to reboot the franchise.
Cynically, you could go, oh, they're just trying to do the cantina again. But on the other hand, it's Star Wars, and if you don't have a version of that, I would leave feeling like, well, where was that? How could they not do the cantina? Is there a big, giant, planet-sized weapon in Force Awakens? Yes. And does it blow up? It does blow up. And so there are undeniable, parallels. I very purposely wanted to sort of revisit the old in order to start and tell the new. And that was the challenge. And again, for those who hate it, I could not respect your opinion more. And for those who love it, I question your sanity.
Although the movie was a success, when George Lucas saw the finished movie, Iger recalls, Lucas didn't hide his disappointment. There's nothing new, he said. In each of the films in the original trilogy, it was important to him to present new worlds, new stories, new characters, and new technologies. In this one, he said, there weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward. He wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't appreciating the pressure we were under to give ardent fans a film that felt quintessentially Star Wars. We'd intentionally created a world that was visually and tonally connected to the earlier films, to not stray too far from what people love and expected. Iger explains, and George was criticising us for the very thing we were trying to do. Now for J.J. and Lawrence Kasdan's early drafts. Lord Santeca was supposed to be a priest in the Church of the Force. The Church of the Force was an idea George Lucas had for his live-action TV show that was cancelled. There is a deleted scene where Finn confronts a villager during the raid. This scene takes place after Finn witnesses the death of the First Order trooper. The villain named Jedi Killer evolved into Kylo Ren and went through a lot of designs. Some of these designs would be reused for the Knights of Ren or other characters that appear in the movie. Poe Dameron was originally meant to die in the crash.
Originally, Poe was going to die early in the film, and that was the script that Oscar saw. And one of his issues wanting to do this movie was that he'd made like 4 movies in which he died early on. And he was sick of dying early on.
A week or so later, J.J. wrote me and he said, I've got it figured out, Poe's in the rest of the movie now. And so this idea that Poe comes back was something that was added later, which obviously for me was incredibly exciting and fantastic. I get to live.
After Captain Phasma tells Finn to report to her division, we would have cut to the Resistance base on Dakar, where Leia is given a message.
Sir! Any word from Poe?
No. General, the Jakku village was wiped out.
I'm sorry, Your Highness. There was no sign of the map anywhere.
Take it to Luke first, we haven't got a chance. What about Poe?
They found his X-Wing destroyed. Blast marks indicate it was the First Order.
There's no mention of BB-8.
He wasn't recovered.
Never underestimate a droid.
No, man.
General, should we contact the Republic?
You have to be smarter than that. Find BB-8 immediately. Our future may depend on it.
Yes, of course, General. Oh, my. This is a catastrophe.
According to J.J. Abrams, it was Michael Arndt who told him to cut every Leia scene prior to a reunion with Han Solo on Takodana, claiming this would create more emotions. When Rey is attacked by thugs in an attempt to abduct BB-8, Constable Zuvio steps in to break up the tussle. After settling the issue with the constable, Rey becomes aware that Unkar Plutt wants BB-8. Finn being recognised by BB-8 for wearing Poe's jacket would have happened later in the story. For Supreme Leader Snoke, J.J. Abrams and creature and droid supervisor Neil Scanlon didn't want the character to look old and decrepit like Darth Sidious, and was even considered to be female. Snoke's final appearance was based on the Hammer horror movies, where he was handsome in his younger days, but became twisted by the dark side the more powerful he became. So yeah, totally different from Darth Sidious. Leia has a conversation with Corcella, telling her to warn the New Republic about the First Order.
Full respect. Will the Republic listen? Not all the senators think I'm insane. Or maybe they do. I don't care.
This explains later why the camera focuses on Corcella when the First Order destroys Hosnium Prime. Unkar Plutt, the Jakku junk buyer, was supposed to show up at Maz's castle and confront Rey about stealing the Falcon.
I suggest kindly that you let go of me.
And I suggest less kindly that you come with me. You have no idea the trouble you are in. Hey! I'm not afraid of you. Half a Wookiee isn't much.
In concept art, there was a machine that resembled a probe droid that drills down into the catacombs when the First Order attacks Maz's castle, as well as Kylo Ren force throwing rocks at X-Wings during the battle. Originally, Maz Kanata had force powers. After the First Order begins their attack on the castle, Maz uses her force powers to cause the ceiling to cave in on a group of stormtroopers that had them cornered. Han Solo would have stalled them to allow Maz to concentrate. You can partially see this deleted scene just without the Maz part.
Is there another way out of here?
No, it's not.
What are you doing?
Put your weapons down! We're taking you into custody by order of Supreme Leader Snoke.
Snoke. You know Smoke?
Snoke. Supreme Leader Snoke.
What makes him supreme?
Put your weapons down!
What did he do? Is this something he did? Is this about the stormtrooper boots?
That's how you knew.
Weapons down!
Here.
That's my gun. I'm gonna give him my gun.
Down.
And the other one, the hairy one.
That's smart.
Don't call him
smart,
that.
Solo. Put it down.
And your blaster!
What is wrong with you?
My blaster?
Give him the blaster.
It's broken.
After having her castle destroyed, Maz went back to the Resistance base. This is where the shot from the trailer comes from, of Maz handing Leia her father's lightsaber. J.J. Abrams decided that there was no real reason for Maz to come back to the Resistance base, as she didn't have much to do later in the story, so it was cut. At Starkiller Base, Kylo goes on board the Millennium Falcon with snowtroopers.
It's clear.
Han Solo.
When the final battle started, in concept art, there was a ship named the Resistance Warhammer that would have penetrated the shield on Starkiller Base to allow ships to go through it. Another deleted scene showed Finn and Rey stealing a speeder to escape the First Order snowtroopers.
places!
And finally, once the battle is over,
Your friend's gonna be just fine.
So what do you guys think? Would you like to have seen George Lucas's or Michael Arndt's version, or are you happy with what we got? Let me know down in the comments what ideas you liked and what you didn't like. If you're new to the channel, I have already covered the prequel trilogy, and I will be taking a look at all the other Star Wars movies and TV shows too. So please like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing those. Thank you for watching. I will see you all again next time.